Since its inaugural season in 1988, the World Superbike Championship has held 37 seasons, and within those numbers, 20 of them were last round title deciders. In this video, I selected 13 of them, even some resulting in a very tight margin by the end of the last race of the last round. Bear in mind that this list is mainly formed based on the number of margin between the top two by the final classification, as mid-season performance will only serve as an additional info that formed the title decider as it was. Undergoing his fourth full season in the WorldSBK paddock, Carl Fogarty, now riding the new Ducati 916, found himself fighting for the title again for the second year in a row. He came close in 1993, losing out to Kawasaki's Scott Russell by 29 points in the final classification. 1993 was almost included on this list, had its margin beaten the margin in 1994. It was an anticlimactic ending, as the last round that was supposed to be held in Mexico City's Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez was cancelled due to poor track condition, hence automatically handed the title over to Russell, who already had a 29 points lead over Fogarty in second. So to have found himself involved again in a tight title fight, Fogarty's raw talent really was at a display throughout the whole season, despite some occurrences prevented him from having a total domination. The first was his absence in both races of the German round in Hockenheim due to a broken wrist. These two races that he missed were won by his closest rival, yet again Russell. The second one was his retirement in race 1 of the Italian round in Misano. A mechanical failure that saw him unable to finish race 1 of the Indonesian round in Sentul will be the third, as the major flop from pole position in both races of the European round in Donington Park will be the fourth. Fogarty only managed P14 and P5 in those races. Coming to the last round in Phillip Island, Foggy only had a 5 points advantage over Russell in second, and surprisingly, despite had not won any race up until the last round, New Zealand's Aaron Slide was only a further 17 points aback, meaning he was still a title contender. However, after race 1 had finished, Slide was out of contention as he was then 24 points adrift from Fogarty. It was still on between Fogarty and Russell, as Fogarty's win put him a further 3 points from the defending champion. A poor P17 for Russell in race 2 would mean that he lost the title to Fogarty, who finished in P2, taking his first WorldSBK crown by 25 points. Foggy became the first rider to win the title despite missing at least one round, a feat only done by him until Turkey's Toprak Razgatlioglu did even better 30 years later, winning the title despite missing 2 whole rounds. Almost the same circumstances as Fogarty faced 19 years prior, Kawasaki's Tom Sykes was on the verge of claiming his first and only WorldSBK crown. He was also, same as Foggy, the runner-up in the previous season, which will be presented in this list as well, and is now looking strong as ever to take the title. However, another rider also emerged to challenge Sykes, and that was Ireland's Eugene Laverty, the youngest of the 3 Laverty siblings who are all motorcycle racers. Sykes, being well known as Mr. Superpole, showed exactly why he was nicknamed that, claiming 8 Superpole in 8 rounds out of 14, meaning he started on pole 16 times and 7 of which was successfully converted into a win. Bear in mind that it has been exactly 20 years since the last time a Kawasaki rider snatched the title, meaning that this one was all or nothing for the Green Gang. Coming to the last round held in Jerez, Laverty trailed Sykes by 37 points, keeping his faint title hope alive, while teammate Sylvain Gintelli was only 1 point adrift from him. Gintelli, who by then only had 1 victory, was oddly still in contention despite the slimmest of chances. Laverty then managed to win race 1, but Sykes' P3 was enough for him to lock the title, as he had 28 points over Laverty coming to race 2. Laverty made it a Sunday double to close the championship only 23 points adrift from Sykes, with Gintelli's P3 put him 45 points aback from Sykes. 2 Ducatis versus 2 Hondas, the most classic of WorldSBK. Having come out on top in the previous 2 seasons, Fogarty was fresh to defend his double title on a new bike. He made a bold move to Honda, partnering his title rival in those 2 seasons, Slide. Both of them were then riding the same spec of Honda RC45, one of Honda's most legendary mass-produced bike of all time. 25-year-old Troy Corso was then ready for a rematch with Fogarty, as he was second to Foggy by a large margin in 1995. It was expected to be a 3-way gigantic battle between only Fogarty, Corso and Slide, as no one expected much from American rookie John Kaczynski. Kaczynski, despite being a rookie, was actually not to be underestimated. He was the 1990 GP250 World Champion. GP250 has been rebranded as Moto2 since 2010 and was classified third twice in the premier class of GP500, now MotoGP, in 1992 and 1994. Despite Corsa's magnificent performance in 1995, he was not signed by the factory Ducati squad as they picked Kosinski and Neil Hodgson for the seat. Corsa was instead still riding with the customer team of Promoter Racing, albeit running with the factory spec Ducati 916 as well. With 50 points still up for grasp coming to the last round, the top 4 in the championship were all in contention. Fogarty was the one at a disadvantage as he was 45 points back from series' leader Corsa, with Kosinski being 36 points below, as well as Slight trailing Corsa by 26 points. It was rather almost a smooth sail for Corsa to topple Fogarty down from his throne. A strong P3 in front of his home crowd in Phillip Island was enough to crown him the 1996 Superbike World Champion, as Slight failed to finish race 1. By the end of the final race, Corsa was firmly in the lead with 22 points from Slight, with Kosinski a further 32 points behind and Fogarty trailing by 38 points.
What's it like to be world champion?
Oh, it's great. It's something I've dreamt of since I first started road racing, so it's great to come here and do it in front of the home crowd. So many spectators here. It's a shame that Aaron crashed, but I think I still would have won it in the end, but no, it's great. I've got to thank all the guys, everyone who helped me, the whole team. They're all down there, done a great job all year, and without them I wouldn't be up here.
Starting the season as the defending champion for the 6th times in a row, Jonathan Rea seemed to be clinching his 7th straight world title with the Green Gang. Many viewed that the Northern Irish's main rival would again be Ducati spearhead Scott Redding. Redding did just that, but only for the first 1.5 round. His crash in race 2 of the Estoril round was enough to solidify Rea's lead in the championship, or so he thought. Little that Rea knew, his crown was under a massive threat from none other than the 24-year-old Turkish Toprak Razgatlioglu. Riding the Yamaha for the 2nd year, Razgatlioglu was getting more and more comfortable to break the latest with the YZR-R1. Late braking has been Razgatlioglu's strongest point even from his junior career. Being equipped with the R1's well-built chassis for cornering, he exploited the full potential of the bike, taking 11 featured race wins and 2 Superpole race wins. On the other hand, Rea managed 7 featured race wins and 6 Superpole race wins, making a total of 13 race wins for each contender. Both Razgatlioglu and Rea were trading blows throughout the entire season, with the latter cracking first. Rea's first major mistake was crashing out while leading in race 2 of the British round in Donington Park. He did remount only to cross the line in P20, while Razgatlioglu won the race, taking the lead with 2 points. Rea would then retaliate in his second home at Assen, taking the hat-trick, while Razgatlioglu managed 2 P3s and then wiped out by Garrett Gerloff in race 2. At this point, knowing how strong and consistent Rea had been in the past 6 seasons, even Razgatlioglu himself said that the title was already lost for this year, as he was then a whopping 37 points behind Rea. Surprisingly, Rea cracked again in the very next round, race 1 of the Czech round in Moss. He crashed again, reducing his lead to only 12 points in an instant as Razgatlioglu won the race. This catch and trail would then happen back and forth up until the last round in Indonesia. With 30 points in the lead, Razgatlioglu was expected to seal the title after race 1. It was a tricky weekend for both contenders as weather condition played a major part here. In 2016, the 2 races format had been changed a bit. Prior to 2016, both race 1 and 2 were held on the same day, which was Sunday. From 2016 until 2018, however, race 1 would be held on Saturday with race 2 the following day. Since the introduction of Superpole race in 2019, however, now Sunday will again have 2 races, the Superpole race and race 2. But in this particular Indonesian round in 2021, the extreme weather condition forced the organizers to reschedule the format. Superpole race was declared cancelled on Saturday, as race 1 would be held on Sunday, the same day as race 2, just like the old format, meaning there were a total of 50 points left on the table instead of 62. It was still pouring rain on Sunday, despite with less intensity as the previous day, hence race 1 was on the way. Having started on pole, Razgatlioglu lost the lead immediately as Rea took the whole shot, with Redding following him behind. Razgatlioglu was relegated to 3rd, fighting with Gerloff for a brief moment before barging his way through on Redding, even running wide on a few occasions as if he wasn't fighting for the title, full elbows out, no playing it safe. By the checkered flag, Rea won the race, but Razgatlioglu won the title by 25 points, meaning even if he didn't score any point in race 2 and Rea winning it, they would be tied on point, but Razgatlioglu would still be champion due to having more featured race wins. As race 2 concluded, Rea took the double as Razgatlioglu only finished in 4th, closing the season with 13-point lead from Rea, taking the number 1 to Yamaha for the first time since 2009. Australia's Troy Bailey started the season bearing the number 1, having snatched the crown from America's Colin Edwards in 2001. Riding the legendary Castrol Honda, Edwards would love to get his crown back, but the Bailey's Ducati combo proved too difficult to beat. Bailey took a clean sweep in the first 3 rounds, building up a lead of a whopping 45 points ahead of Edwards in second. Edwards finally won in the very next round in race 1 of the Japanese round in Sugo, but the next few rounds saw Bailey's being almost undefeatable. The margin Bailey's had over Edwards reached its peak at 58 points after race 1 of the US round in Laguna Seca. Bailey's won that race, his 6th in a row and his 14th in total out of the previous 17 races held in that season, yet this happened to be his final win of the season. Edwards woke up and chose violence by clean sweeping the next 9 races, producing the greatest ever turnaround in the history of WorldSBK, overcoming a 58-point margin to winning by 11 points clear over Bailey's at the very last race of the last round in Italy. Less than a second separate them by the finish line, it was an all-out showdown, elbows out between the two throughout the entire 21 laps as if a title wasn't on the line, and then the slightest of mistake could have cost them big time. Having finished 3rd in the previous season, 23-year-old James Toseland was tipped to be a series title challenger for 2004. Riding the factory-spec Ducati 999 F04, his French teammate Regis Laconi was also thrown into the mix, as it was expected to be a gigantic intra-team battle for supremacy. Customer team Renegade Ducati Koji, running a different spec Ducati 999 RS with Noriyuki Haga on top of it, was viewed as the dark horse. Haga had just returned to the WorldSBK paddock after spending a difficult season in MotoGP the previous year. But it was Honda's Aussie rookie Chris Vermeulen who was the surprise package, since no one expected the Hondas to be able to fight for wins, let alone for a title, especially in the hands of a rookie. In fact, Vermeulen was the only full-time Honda rider that season, with other Honda riders just being wildcards. Toseland won the opening race but was unable to step his foot on the top step until 16 races later. Between his first and second win of the season, both Laconi and Haga amassed 5 wins each, with Vermeulen winning 3 races in a row. It seemed ugly for Toseland's campaign, as he was down in P4 before that second win of the season in race 1 of the Dutch round in Assen. With that victory, Toseland was back in the lead of only just a point from Laconi. Albeit, coming to the last round, Laconi was again ahead of his teammate by 4 points. It was a 4-way battle for the title, with Haga being the one with the slimmest hope of coming out best, as he was 41 points back from Laconi, with 50 points still up for grasp. Vermeulen, on the other hand, was trailing Laconi by 13 points, amazing to say the least, coming from the only Honda on the grid and a rookie to that point. However, racing in front of his home crowd in Magny-Cours didn't give Laconi that extra boost to show absolute domination. Race 1 was won by Toseland, with Laconi only in P3, relegating him to second in the standing with 1 race to go. With Vermeulen failed to finish the race and Haga being in P2, it was over for both of them in the context of the championship. With 5-point lead already in his hand, Toseland knew he needed to finish in front of Laconi coming to race 2. Had Laconi won race 2 with Toseland in second, they would be tied on points, but Laconi will emerge as the champion as he had more race wins. But fortunately for Toseland, Laconi did another P3, while Toseland himself safely in P2, winning him the title by only 9 points. World Superbike was only 1 year old at this point, yet the spectacle it produced was nerve-wracking. Honda's defending champion Fred Markel started the season a bit off trajectory with a P4 and P6 in the first round, before producing 3 wins in a row in the next 3 races, which ironically were the only victories he had that season. The arrival of French rookie Raymond Rouge was unexpectedly becoming a new formula in this title battle. Super quick, albeit being too inconsistent throughout the entire season with too many DNFs and silly mistakes. By the end of the season, Rouge, riding a Ducati, collected the highest amount of wins as well as podiums, a total of 5 wins and 11 podiums out of possible 22. Markel's fellow Honda rider, Belgium's Stefan Martens, really upped his game from the previous season, taking 3 wins and was actually leading the championship coming to the last round in New Zealand. It was another 4-way battle for the title coming to this round, with Martens leading by 3 points ahead of Markel. Rouge was a further 23 points adrift, while Fabrizio Pirovano, who won the first race of the season and never had any after that at this point, was 37 points behind, with a faint title hope with only 40 points still on the table. One thing to note was that Pirovano did not show up in this final round, he missed the final round entirely. While running 6th in race 1, Mertens' front disc disintegrated and the bike sped off track, bursting into flames. A solid P3 from Markel saw him reclaim the championship lead by 12 points. With 20 points still up for grasp, the fight was not over yet between the top 2, as mechanical failure saw Rouge out in race 1, consequently out of contention for the title. Mertens would then win in race 2, but yet another P3 from Merkel was enough to seal him his second WorldSBK crown with only 7 points advantage. With another hit of mechanical issue, Rouge ended up with double DNFs in this round, concluding his season with 222 points, a whopping 50 adrift from Merkel, while Pirovano was 64 points further behind. Merkel's consistency earned him the title as he never had any DNFs throughout the season, only once finishing outside the points, a P16 in race 1 of the Japanese round in Sugo. Continuing their battle from 2013, 2014 was another Kawasaki versus Aprilia for the title. With Marco Melandri joining the Noale-based factory, replacing the outgoing Lavati, it was expected that he would bring the Aprilia to the top again after Max Biaggi did it last time 2 years prior. Unexpectedly, it was Gintoli who seemed to be the stronger Aprilia rider of the two. Gintoli was in the lead after the first round in Phillip Island, 10 points clear from Kawasaki's Loris Bas, while teammate as well as the defending champion Sykes was sitting in P6, 16 points adrift from Gintoli. However, as the season progressed, Sykes propelled himself onto the lead, a comfortable lead which peaked at 44 points, and he did it twice, with Gintoli in second on both occasions. The first one was after race 1 of the Portuguese round in Portimao, and the second was after race 2 of the US round in Laguna Seca, which was the 9th round of the season, leaving 3 rounds to go and 150 points left on the table. Gintoli responded, and he responded magnificently in those remaining 6 races. Not even once did he finish behind Sykes from that point onward, and not just that, he never finished lower than P2 in those 6 races. Coming to Qatar for the last round, Gintoli was just 12 points aback from Sykes. As the pressure building up, Sykes only managed a 3rd place for race 1 as Gintoli comfortably winning it, cutting Sykes' lead for a whopping 9 points. A carbon copy result for the two championship protagonists would mean that Gintoli was crowned the 2014 Superbike World Champion by 6 points ahead of Sykes. Ben Spies arrived at the World Superbike paddock as a triple AMA Superbike champion. He was just 24 years old, would be 25 in July that year, and was already expected to immediately fighting within the front group. One thing that many viewed as something that might potentially hindered him from doing so was the fact that he had to adapt with the all-new Yamaha YZF Air 1, as he never rode the bike on the competitive level before. All of his 3 AMA Superbike titles were done on board the Suzuki GSX R1000, but Spies never blinked. He stormed to pole position on his first attempt on a circuit he never had ridden before in Phillip Island. And not just that, he continued a streak of pole position for the next 6 rounds, making 7 poles in a row. Talk about rookie, huh? By the end of the season, Spies amassed a total of 11 pole positions out of possible 14. Hagar, on the other hand, now again riding the Ducati after he did it last in 2004, was actually the favorite at the start of the season. At this point, Hagar never won a title, but he came close twice, being the runner-up in 2000 and 2007, and finishing the season in P3 4 times from 2004, 2006, and 2008. With Bayliss retiring by the end of 2008 and his vacant seat being filled by Hagar, he was expected to win the 2009 title easily. In fact, after the 6th round in South Africa, Hagar was leading the championship by a whopping 85 points ahead of teammate Mikel Fabrizio, while Spies was 88 points behind. However, after that point, both Spies and Hagar would trade blows back and forth, culminating in a last round title fight between the two, with Hagar having the upper hand. It was the Portuguese round in Portimao. Hagar had a 10-point lead over Spies in second, but disaster struck the 34-year-old Japanese in race 1. A difficult qualifying session saw Hagar starting 10th on the grid, and bear in mind that in this era of WorldSBK, one row contained 4 grids, meaning that Hagar would start from the 3rd row. Spies, on the other hand, was on pole. As the lights went out, Spies got a great start and was pulling way out the front. Hagar was slowly but surely climbing up the order. Once he got to P5 on lap 6, his front end washed away, down he went, hands on the head for the Ducati Xerox Team's Speed crew. With Spies ending the race victorious, he is now 15 points ahead of Hagar. It's not over yet. As race 2 commenced, Spies just played safe, while Hagar was again on the charge, ending the race in a strong P2, but Spies' P5 was all he needed to win the title on his first and only attempt, putting the greatest ever comeback in the history of WorldSBK, overcoming an 88 points deficit to winning by only 6 points. Ever wondered how did the inaugural season of WorldSBK go? Well, it was a 4-way battle until the very last round and reduced to a 3-way battle coming to the last race. But before we get to that, an explanation of the point scoring system is needed here. In 1988, the FIM changed the point scoring system from the previous top 10 base to now a top 15 base. This system was implemented in the Grand Prix motorcycle racing paddock, and with WorldSBK being born in this particular season, it adopted the same system. However, there was a slight tweak here and there. For only the first round, only the best results being counted if the riders finished in both races. If the rider only scored in one race and then failed to score in the other one due to maybe a crash, a mechanical failure, or even just simply having a bad race and finished outside the top 15, then no points will be included. Weird? Yeah, I know. Bimota's Davide Tardozzi managed to win the first ever WorldSBK race, but unfortunately he crashed on the final lap of race 2, resulting in no points scored for this round. It is possible that even the organizers thought that this was a weird scoring system, so a change was made. From the second round onward, half points for each race would be awarded to the rider. Even if they failed to score any points, it would not affect the round result. This will later become a massive blow for Tardozzi's championship aspiration, since had this system been implemented from the first round, Tardozzi would become WorldSBK's first ever champion. A special case emerged in the French round in Le Mans when full points were awarded since race 2 was cancelled due to weather condition. Coming to the last round in Mansfield, Tardozzi was leading the championship with an advantage of only 2.5 points. Sitting in second place was Honda's Michael, tied on points with Yamaha's Pirovano, while 8 points adrift from Tardozzi in P4 was teammate Mertens. It was only the first season of WorldSBK, yet it already served the fans a title fight down to the wire. With Michael's second win in race 1, he took over the lead. Pirovano's strong P2 would mean he jumped Tardozzi, who only finished in P5, relegating him to third. Mertens' 6th place saw him out of contention coming to the last race, only 2 points separating the top 3 now, and it was yet another misfortune for Tardozzi. He didn't even start the race, while his Bimota teammate ended the race victorious. A further behind Mertens, Merkel's P5 was more than enough to make him WorldSBK's first ever champion by only 5.5 points ahead of Pirovano, who finished in 13th place. Had Tardozzi's win in the first round counted towards the championship point, he would then amass a total of 111.5 points, winning him the title by 12.5 points ahead of Merkel.
Okay? Where's David?
David crashed on the warm-up lap.
They crashed on the warm-up lap. Why the hell didn't you tell me that? Jesus!
We gambled. We started with wet tires. The boys weren't too sure, and I said, look, the only way I think we're going to be able to do this because we don't have enough warm-up laps to break in some fronts, even intermediates. We got to go with the wets, and we got to get a good start, and we got to just haul. We got to get away from them, and it worked.
Throughout his entire WorldSBK career, Fogarty clinched a total of 4 titles. Amongst these 4 championships, 1998 was his weakest year. Only managing 3 victories out of possible 24, he came to the last round on the short end of the stick. He was third, trailing Corsa by 6 points, and directly in front of him was Slyke just 5.5 points ahead. This was Slyke's strongest season so far, as he collected 5 P1s to Corsa's only 2. Prior to this, Slyke had finished runner-up once in the tight 1996, which had been discussed, and 4 third places in the final standing from 1993 to 1995 and 1997. If there were any chances of winning the title, it is now. The first plot twist would occur in the warm-up lap of race 1 of this last round in Sugo. Pole sitter and long-term championship leader Corsa crashed and was ruled out for the race and subsequently race 2 as well, ending his hope of a second title in tears. All the while, Fogarty was safe and sound, running in third and finished it there, as Slyke finished in a mere P7. Foggy suddenly had the upper hand of only 1.5 points from Slyke. In race 2, however, Foggy's tires started spinning and sliding, and he thought to himself that was it. It might be over right there and then, but it didn't. He successfully crossed the line in P4, and with Slyke only managed a 6th place, Foggy was crowned champion for the 3rd time by only 4.5 points. After this season, Slyke never won another race, and he retired by the end of 2000. He made a move to car racing for 2001. 2007 was WorldSBK's 20th season going, and so far it had produced 11 world champions. Amongst those 11, only Troy Corsa managed to win multiple titles with 2 different brands, 1996 with Ducati and 2005 with Suzuki. Other than him, previous multiple champions only managed to do so with one manufacturer. Toseland made a huge move from Ducati to Honda in 2006, and coming to 2007, he was ready to challenge for the title after having 1 year of experience with the Tokyo-based factory. Yamaha spearhead Haga was again one of the favorite of the season, as he finished the previous 3 seasons third in the final standings. However, a new variable was thrown into the mix, and that was the Roman Emperor, Max Biaggi. 2007 was Biaggi's rookie season in WorldSBK, as he was out of MotoGP by the end of 2005 and was unemployed in 2006. Biaggi was already 35 years of age coming to the first round, and with one sabbatical year, it wasn't that few who didn't consider him any threat for the established front-runners. This would later be proven wrong, as Biaggi on board his Suzuki was still a contender coming to the last round, trailing the leader by 29 points, sitting in second place. The last round was the French round in Magny-Cours, and Toseland snatched the fastest lap time during qualifying, earning him only his second pole of the season when it mattered the most. Yet as the lights went off, it was almost over for Toseland. He was involved in the first corner accident that saw Lorenzo Lanzi crash heavily, forcing Toseland to run wide into the gravel and was dead last after the first lap. Meanwhile, Haga made the best start of his life, starting 4th on the grid, now leading the race. Toseland would make his way up the order, ending the race in P7. And with Nitro Nori being victorious, the gap was now only 17 points separating the top 2. Biaggi's P6 in race 1 ruled him out of contention, as he was now 28 points behind Toseland. Nothing really dramatic happened in race 2, as Haga propelled himself onto the lead once again, and Toseland's bad start didn't help him at all for a safe ride to the checkered flag. In the end, Haga made it a Sunday double, but a P6 for Toseland was enough to cover Haga's recovery attempt. Toseland is a double WorldSBK champion by 2 points.
And so 2007 I felt I deserved it. It's the only Superbike Championship 10 car days won. The last championship for Honda as well, and being the underdogs in a satellite team to achieve the greatest achievement in Superbike paddock, with me as well from the past with 2004, I was very proud of myself.
I've touched upon 2012 a bit since the beginning of this list, and we finally made it here. Biaggi entered the season as a one-time WorldSBK champion, a title he lost the previous season to Ducati's Carlos Checa. One thing to note from this campaign, Biaggi was the oldest rider on the grid, entering the first round age 40 and would be 41 by June that year. Yet he shut all mouths by winning in race 1 of the first round in Phillip Island, following it with a P2 in race 2 to start the season with a strong point lead. This was one of WorldSBK's longest calendar, containing a total of 14 rounds and 28 races, albeit there were only 27 done by the end of the season as race 1 of the Italian round was cancelled. Sykes, now getting more and more firm on board the ZX-10R, was one of the unexpected title favorite this year, along with the new BMW rider of Melandri, who made a switch from Yamaha. Throughout the season, Biaggi's peak lead was only 60 points over Melandri in second, and that was after race 1 of the Spanish round in Aragon. Since then, he was never really able to build a healthy lead, as Melandri kept reducing the gap, especially after his 3 back-to-back wins from race 2 in Aragon to race 2 of the Czech round in Brno. Heck, even after race 2 of the Russian round in Moscow, Melandri was actually leading the championship by 18.5 points ahead of Biaggi. With the trio kept robbing points out of each other, they came to the last round with Biaggi on top, holding a 30.5 point lead over Sykes in second, and Melandri, who at this point had not scored in the previous 4 races in a row, was in third, 38.5 points aback. But if you made it this far in the video, you should know that it's not WorldSBK if it doesn't have any plot twist in a title fight. Race 1 of the last round in Magny-Cours again was on the way. And what happened? Biaggi crashed out on only the second lap. And to add salt to the wounds, both Melandri and Sykes finished in P2 and P3 respectively. Now Sykes was only 14.5 points behind and Melandri was 18.5 points aback from Biaggi. It was truly on between the 3. After the crash, Biaggi had a brief mental breakdown in his trailer, and the one who gave him that last push to believe himself that he could pull this one off was none other than Jorge Lorenzo, who was at that point still a one-time MotoGP world champion. Race to commence, and in the tricky condition of a damp track surface, Biaggi rode on slick tires and pulled off a masterclass of a ride, cruising to P5 while Sykes emerged victorious. With another DNF for Melandri, Biaggi was crowned the world champion by only 0.5 points.
I'm here, happy, I don't want to take out anything from the guy here. They were all fantastic race, Tom also, he deserved like me to be here, but this time is my time, next it will be his time.